Nejamaran Rajaungam, nicknamed Mara, is a previous Indian Flying Corps chief who fantasies about beginning a minimal-expense transporter carrier. He adores Paresh Goswami, the proprietor of Jazz Aircrafts who made extraordinary progress, of any result. When he came to, his dad had as of now kicked the bucket. This sent off his desire for beginning a minimal-expense transporter. Bami, in any case, feels that he wouldn't focus on her post-marriage and rejects him. Mara visits Naidu to request the ex-serviceman credit with the goal that he can begin his carrier, yet Naidu rejects. With no other choice, Mara goes on a similar trip as Paresh. He proposes they cooperate and begin a minimal-expense transporter. Paresh, nonetheless, accepts that the poor shouldn't go with the rich and embarrasses Mara. Prakash Babu, the top of an investor firm, hears Mara's discussion with Paresh and requests that he make sense of his strategy to the board. Individuals from, rankled by his advancement, Paresh utilizes his ability to pass a regulation that requires Boeing to present its carrier plans to fly in the Indian airspace. This prompts Plane M dropping the rent and requesting a punishment expense. Mara demands Prakash to credit him cash to suffer the consequence, yet he is denied. Prakash uncovers he was working with Paresh and had schemed with him to cut Mara down. He likewise uncovers the Boeing planes were procured by Jazz carriers and figures out an agreement with a turboprop airplane maker. Paresh, dreading his ascent can influence his business, chooses to assume control over issues. In the meantime, Mara's whole town comes to help him monetarily by giving as much cash. He intends to start flight activities from deserted airstrips since the significant air terminals go under Paresh's control. He names his carrier Deccan Air and sells tickets at rail line stations and petroleum siphons expecting to get clients. Resigned aviation-based armed forces pilots are employed to fly the planes and Bami is made accountable for the in-flight providing food. Upon the arrival of the conveyance of the airplane, Paresh takes advantage of his leverage to limit the fly. Arrival at Chennai, constraining the trip to crash land at the Tambaram Flying Corps base because of absence of fuel. Naidu brings Mara to make sense of the crisis arrival and lets him off with a fine in the wake of catching wind of his desires. Upon the arrival of the launch, the flight bursts into flames and is compelled to drop takeoff. It is uncovered that Paresh had paid off the commander to undermine the flight. The chief takes ownership of his slip-ups before the request. Vimalbalaya, an unmistakable finance manager, offers to purchase Deccan Air, however Mara denies, referring to contrasts in their vision. Paresh begins a slanderous attack against Deccan Air with expectations of finishing Mara's fantasies. However, Mara guarantees everybody that his flights are protected and practical. Upon the arrival of the beginning of tasks, be that as it may, nobody turns up for one of the flights. Right when Mara is going to surrender, he is educated. Paresh later calls Mara, and offers to work with him, however Maran rejects the deal, referring to that ranchers have flown and will proceed to fly and that Paresh doesn't possess the sky. Thus, Paresh acknowledges rout as Deccan Air turns into a triumph. In a mid-credits scene, the common flying pastor of India gathers Paresh to Delhi, and censures him for subverting Deccan Air's debut flight, and takes steps to close down Jazz carriers. Paresh is subsequently found in a bathroom getting a mental breakdown and attempts to take his pill, yet it falls on the ground. A janitor in the washroom gets the pill for Paresh, prompting in him a feeling of regard for lower pay gatherings. In the carrier business through difficult work. At some point, Mara is visited by Sundari Nam de Plume Bami, whose family is searching for a reasonable lucky man for her. Mara is dazzled by Bami's temperament and consents to wed her. He tells her that he grew up as an insubordinate kid, much to his dad's consternation, and had a stressed relationship with him. Afterward, he enlisted in the air power where he succeeded. He was much of the time condemned by the firm. In the meantime, Mara and Bami begin meeting each other every now and again and in the long run get hitched. He intends to rent Boeing plane-carrying warships from Plane M who have consented to rent them at low costs. Had a specialized error happen because of which the tickets for that specific flight didn't get booked. Be that as it may, any remaining flights get totally reserved. With tears of joy in his eyes, Mara watches different flights contact down his boss, M. Naidu, because of his insubordinate nature. At the point when his dad was on his deathbed, Mara attempted to book a flight home, however found that he needed more cash. He demands many individuals to help him out monetarily, without much. After his assets get authorized, Mara attempts to meet the DGCA authorities to procure the permit, however they neglect to give him any significance. Mara meets the leader of India and solicitations his assistance in getting the permit. All things being equal. Irritated, Mara rages into Paresh's office yet is handled by the gatekeepers. He turns out to be irascible and frequently squabbles with Bami yet later apologizes. He understands that he can fly more modest airplane,